Surprise, surprise, you're back at the analyst desk to cover picks and bans heading into game number 2 here. And I just want to kick off the discussion because I feel like we've seen a lot of Kaisa this weekend, and she just does everything. Like, she's solid in lane, playing with an all-in AD carry. Her poke becomes ridiculous later on. Is it legal to still let this champion go through?
Everyone just seems to look way better when they play Kaisa than any other champion, honestly. The problem is when you play red side, you have so many bans you have to deal with. Right now there's the Rumble, the Rel, the Maokai. Do you want to trade them, the Maokai for the Kaisa? Maybe you can do it, but in general there's so many locked bans already that you don't really have the space. Let's see what SK does here.
I think it's so crazy though, because it's the fact that you can pivot. It's the fact that there's so many different builds you can go for. You can keep the AD carry.
Different lanes you can go into.
I mean, you saw the Jace earlier. You can combine this into a poke composition if you want to instead. And there's a lot of different draft optimizations you can go for. Obviously, on blue side, you won't have the last pick, but outside of that, it just gives you so much fun.
Yeah, I think we'll have a very similar draft, but I do think that SK will change their 4 or 5 bans. If they want to freeze are very similar. Because last game, they picked Nautilus, and then they banned Ken and Alistar. But I think if you pick Nautilus blind, you have to ban Braum, or you're going to end up in a situation where your Nautilus, if he hooks in, he's going to get tagged. There's a Sejuani as well, you're going to hate your life.
Yep.
So I think if you pick Nautilus on free like this, you have to ban the Braum.
I also think EXCEL might come up with a different adaptation here in terms of their bans. Last time it's the Xayah they got rid of here, but they might have a different option in terms of what they want to get rid of. They've already changed it up. LeBlanc was their 3rd ban last time, now it's their 2nd. On blue side, sometimes you try and hide it before you move in.
Yeah, you give yourself more options by banning it later.
Especially, I think, like, oh, it's actually a Kaisa themselves.
So is it legal? Well,
is it legal when blue side's banning it? What does that mean for their priorities then? Like, are they then highly valuing the Tristana?
They just want to pick a kite back comp right now, I think. They want to pick the Xayah maybe first. Look for like a Xayah, Rakan, and then a tank jungle. Probably drop you both solo laners. That's a pretty standard draft that a lot of people are doing. That's what I would guess considering the Kaisa ban, because Xayah struggles very hard against long-range comps.
Yeah.
So Kaisa is obviously the biggest threat for them.
And that could potentially go back to, you know, a similar style to what they were playing, you know, towards the end of the season, where they had a lot of kite back with like Azir as an option in the mid side. Looks like those 3 bans do maintain over from SK, but this first pick is going to be really telling from EXCEL.
Yeah, so we have the Jace and the Xayah, I think, that I'm looking at. This could be a Jace first pick or a Xayah first pick. That's what I would guess, considering the Jace does very well into the Xayah. Maybe you don't want to take the Xayah if enemy gets the Jace for free.
Yeah, playing poke into, you know, a kite back comp feels very, very nice, which is why that would be higher priority. The Tristana, though, was first rotation on the opposite side for SK, so that is the pickup now from EXCEL.
That's so interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
I think it's weird adaptation because they will probably go Jace anyway, I think.
I mean, I assume they will get the Jace and the Xayah now if they want it.
Exactly, and while Tristana feels good to play against a Jace in the early game because you get the lane prio, late game when you have to deal with the Jace, that becomes a different story. So it's going to be curious to see how far they can take this Tristana pick. They already have well, Poppy now on the other side to actually get rid of the rocket jump if they want to try and even find a kill lane. Like, we've seen certain bust out of Silas to go for specific kill lanes against ranged champions before with SK Gaming, where they also had a Poppy around them.
Yeah, I suppose they could also try to hide where this Tristana is going.
They could pick a Renekton here, for example. It would be a lot of teams are doing it. Picking Renekton, Sejuani too, free on blue side gives you a lot of options by dropping either your AD carry or your mid. Enemy has to like throw the bans out at random.
I mean, it'd give you an insanely aggressive lane to play around, potentially.
Yeah.
Just like supercharging the Sejuani passive for like chain stuns into the base damage being very high, but Nautilus ends up coming on through here.
Yeah. I would assume they should pick Braum here, SK Gaming. I don't see why they will not pick the Braum here. Yeah. As it comes out, as I said, Nautilus blind when Braum is open, it can be pretty scary. But maybe they don't want it. They take the Rakan instead.
Yeah, I was about to say, it was almost like SK had the option to play more of the kite comp, but the Rakan gives them another option to go in and catch.
I think that's also why they third picked the Nautilus here, because they go into, well, do you want to lock in the Jace now, some of the mid laners that are going to be good into Tristana, or do you want the good support matchup? And by forcing that on 3, you also now have the luxury that you can take away some of the strong mid laners off Sertuss and start banning them away here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the Kennen ban locks in, just because EXCEL are showing it's the possibility of an AD mid laner still, so taking away one of Odo's 2 best AP champions up on the top side of the map makes tons of sense.
Yeah, and I doubt SK will pick the Jace together with the Poppy. It's not really a combo you want to go with. When you play Jace mid, you want to have an AP jungle or something with CC, something like a Sejuani or Maokai. So seeing it with Poppy, I would not assume. I think they could look for a Renekton pick, for example, on 4. It's a very strong lane, and the best answer, Jax, is already banned. Would make sense why they also banned their Kennen. I think they're looking to pick up on 4 at least.
Yeah, it probably turns into Renekton Gnar again if that's the situation.
Because usually if you invest 2 bans into top lane, you should pick your top lane on 4.
Yep. Especially if you're banning both the Kennen and the Gnar. That is just screaming Renekton. Do you think EXCEL should counter with the Renekton?
I think they should ban
themselves?
Renekton, and then SK should pick Asante on 4. I think that's what usually happens in these scenarios.
But there's also Irrelevant who actually really loves to get that Gwen into the K'Sante as well. So I feel like that's the curveball, whereas what your suggestion, Finn, is probably what will happen at the most time consistently, and there's actually the Gwen ban instead.
Yeah, Gwen hinting at, you know, maybe a Scion, maybe a K'Sante up on the top side of the map. But also, it's tough because I feel like because they don't know where Tristana is going, it's really hard to blind mid here.
Yeah, I just don't see why you wouldn't pick Renekton on 4 here. It just looks so free. With the Gwen ban coming out, it just gets hand-delivered over to you. So I really want to see what Odoamne has planned into this Renekton, because they actually gave it over for no reason at all. And I'm very surprised.
EXCEL now have the choice to reveal where that Tristana is going.
Yeah.
I feel like, wait.
Yeah, I mean, if you pick Aphelios here, that means you have to put the Tristana mid, and then you don't have an AP top into... you need to pick an AP top into Renekton, which is very hard.
Yeah, you'd have to go way down the list.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go something like a Gragas, which is not that strong after the nerfs.
And also now looking at like the disengage options of Azir plus Tristana, I feel like it's kind of hard to find angles into a fight as a Renekton perhaps, as a Rakan too. It's gonna be very tough.
I wonder if Vodo is just going back on tank duty here as well into this Renekton, just saying you're gonna absorb this pressure, we're gonna try and make plays elsewhere, and then we'll just see where it goes from there. That one would be very different with K'Sante.
The K'Sante is the standard pick, right? It's been shown all over across the world. Like, it's fine into Renekton, you're losing slightly, but you're still K'Sante. You can still burger flip people, turn them into big max in fights, and just kill them with your team.
I feel like something like the Syndra would kind of fit here, because obviously there's a lot of scaling elements on EXCEL's side, so you're looking to play maybe a little bit more aggressively around the Poppy. Like, Markoon was hyper invading in the last game. That's something we're seeing, so some kind of mid laner that can have pressure. The Akali too, for fighting a little bit later, is going to have that flank angle for SK to look for.
Yeah, Sertuss seems like the guy that whenever there's a blind Azir, he wants to Akali.
We see it so many times.
Farm until level 6, fight around first dragon, come from a flank, just join into this river fights and just take over, try to kill enemy AD carry and support.
Do you reckon this lane will be as much attention up towards the top side as we saw in the game earlier? Because I feel like it's going to be harder now with some of the champions to actually go for a dive. Or what do you reckon the early game meta, if you want to say?
I think the one with the initiative in this early game is going to be the Poppy. I think she has some lanes she can play through. She can play for bot or top. And whatever she wants to do, she will try to make the magic happen. I think when I look at EXCEL's comp, they play very scaling solo lanes. They have the K'Sante that's losing and the Azir. They just want to get 2 items and then fight on Drakes. But we'll see what Markoon can do this game, because last game it didn't go too good for him.
For sure, the pressure I think is sort of on SK in the early game, because EXCEL, this was their bread and butter. This is when they went 5-1 during the best of ones in the regular season just to qualify here. They're finally going back to this sort of style. They're experts on it.
Yeah, I like the draft for both teams, but I think if I had to give the edge, I would give it to SK. I think they have so many more tools, and I think a team with a proactive early game can often put themselves in a position to win the game.
I mean, that's what we've been seeing on this patch too. It's like trying to take early fights, finding any angle you can get in the early game. SK need a win here. Let's see what they got.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift for Game 2 of EXCEL versus SK. Just before we dive into any of the action, Dagda, what do you make of these comps? I think when I look at SKs, the champions they have now played the way Game 1 played out is what I would have expected. I thought we were going to have a slower kind of approach in Game 1, but SK, very willing to fight. And look at this, already flashing over the wall. Limit waiting in the wings for Exakick. Did he spot him though? That's the question.
He's no idea.
Abbedagge,
oh, he went the safe way.
Stepping up. Limit is still hiding in the bushes here. Markoon starting in the top quadrant. Peach looks to be going west, but SK's bottom lane backing away. So this level 1 attempt looks like it's going to fizzle.
Yeah, I think Spidey's senses were tingling for Exakick there. He was like, there's something going on. There's no way they would just walk at me in this regard. So there has to be something strange. So doesn't try to go back into his own jungle. Instead moves to mid. And now it's just a flash burned on Limit for nothing.
Flash burned for nothing. He's got the Hex Flash, of course. So we'll be able to at least hide and try to set up some of those plays. Just very quickly, what do you make of this comp? I think we were discussing some of the challenges that Sertuss will have. First of all, going to be pushed in very early on, as you would anticipate. And I think when he starts to look for some of those flanks, has to have creative vision, has to be able to surprise the Tristana and the Azir to get through K'Sante, to get through Sejuani, and to get through this Nautilus. Already is committing here onto DOS once again.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the Akali in this regard because I think you have so much safety pretty much across the board for EXCEL. You don't want to jump onto either of the top side of the map. You want to be getting onto Abbedagge or Patrik, but Patrik jumps away. He's got the buster shot to keep himself safe as well. You've got Abbedagge, who's got the Emperor's Divide, and you don't really have a great dive partner with you either. Like, you're heavily reliant on Irrelevant having flash, which can work for some dragon fights, but it just means you're very binary in how you want to make this work. So even if Sertuss does find some way into the backline, it feels like he has to play out of his mind to make these fights work. It's so simple for EXCEL, and this is actually what the compositions they found success on in the regular season. It was tank top, Abbedagge on Azir, we're just going to play for scaling, we're going to play for these late game fights, and it's why we saw them win week 2. All 3 games was with a comp exactly looking like this.
And we did see SK take down Fnatic with 4 out of 5 of these champions. There was a Gwen in the top lane, which is banned away today. And I think in terms of how they were able to take control against Fnatic, it does give some hope to the SK squad. Odoamne is trading very aggressively here onto Irrelevant. But let's keep a close eye on Markoon as well. I feel like Markoon came into game 1 of this series with something to prove. You know, he was on EXCEL last year. I feel like he was very emboldened, very aggressive in his decision-making, and almost like he wanted to lead the charge. I think he was almost always the first player in, hex flashing over and over again, and ultimately maybe could have been a little bit more patient, I think.
Yeah, especially when it came to those fights. I think letting DOS kind of go for the hooks and that could have set them up to play a little bit slower, look for things. Now, they were getting poked out to a certain extent, but I still think they were just going way too aggressive. And now we'll have to see in this situation how he tries to play it, because I feel like he has a little bit of an anti-synergy coming through with the rest of his team. Like for Markoon, when you play a Poppy, you're not looking to dive, you're looking to try and play it back. But we'll see if he can at least get some ganks going in this top side.
Odoamne is the first target once again. Held in place, knocked back and stunned as well. Irrelevant picks up a clean first blood away from the tower. That means Odo already falling behind. That was a great gank, just really well executed from Markoon and Irrelevant to get this Renekton a little bit further ahead.
Yeah, Peach going to try and respond by invading here onto the Raptors, but Sertuss will should spot him out there as he just comes over. So at least Peach will know exactly what's going on. Markoon going to reset to get him bot side. And the thing we've kind of seen with SK is that they're a team that when they actually start to look good, a lot of it does come from Irrelevant. Like when they can start to get ganks going for him, when he's able to get control. Now traditionally he's been in something like the Jax, but in a situation like this, if he can control topside against Odo, it's going to make things like Rift Herald fights far more interesting.
I think as well, playing up against such a seasoned veteran and experienced player, Irrelevant is having a little bit of a moment. You can see in terms of kill participation, nearly 70%, which is very high. And throughout the course of group stage, second for damage per minute, second for damage share as well. Does mean that with this first blood against the powerhouse that is K'Sante, he's going to be needing all the advantages he can get. I think as well, when you look at how this composition is going to play out, my instinct for Markoon is that Keeper's verdict is to get rid of some of those frontline members. He has to hit pixel-perfect ults to push away the Sejuani, to push away the K'Sante, and that could open up some angles for Sertuss to dive forward. I'm looking at silver linings here, of course, but it does mean that margin for error is very, very slim.
It's just, I would have preferred to see something that can kind of add to the dive prospect going onto that backline. Like obviously now, Vi and Wukong and all got nerfed, but that kind of style, because DOS is your solo big engage tool here, and Peach, when I was about Markoon, actually managed to steal away all of those, so nicely done by Peach, but that's where I think you've got you kind of need someone to help start things off, and not going towards something like an Alistair, instead going towards a Rakan, means that you're left a little bit vulnerable when you're trying to play for these big engages, and if you can just buy time with Patrik jumping away, Abbedagge with the Emperor's Divide, you'll give yourself a moment to readjust in the fights, which SK, just, you're playing on a very tight timing window, which I'm not always a fan of.
Okay, so of course, that's all the theory crafting from how these comps will play out. Right now, SK have generated themselves a small advantage with the laning phase. 800 gold for now. You can see minor gold leads pretty much everyone except in the jungle, where Peach has been power farming. Dredgeline will connect, and DOS is in a little bit of trouble. Takes some damage, but ultimately, a lot of it was shielded up. So we're not going to stick. Peach will be spotted by the ward, clears that out. Markoon is on the top half of the map. Does he fancy himself another dive? Odo still got the flash available, no ult either. Irrelevant's got his, but he sniffs something. His potential is there. I think just spotted out Markoon. I don't know if Markoon saw that ward going into the bush.
I mean, I don't know what Odo said to Markoon on EXCEL, but he has not made it very happy because this entire series, Markoon has just been sitting up here trying to make Odoamne very uncomfortable now. It ended up going well for Odo in the last game where he picked up 3 kills off it, but with Poppy being spotted on the top side, EXCEL are just going to respond. They're going to end up taking away this dragon now. They're going to keep control of the bottom side. They got control over mid. And this is exactly what EXCEL want. Slow pace the game. They can play for dragons, play for scaling, and then just look for those later team fights.
Thing is, that also means they need to survive the eventual skirmishes or objective fights that SK will undoubtedly start. They've rushed 20-minute Baron in every single one of their group games and have successfully picked it up. Irrelevant is 1,300 gold up already, plus 30 CS for the time being. And he has been one of the big carries here for SK. So while EXCEL have got that dragon under their belt, Rift Herald is the next objective. DOS is already in the top half of the map. And it looks to me like SK want to contest this time around. They weren't able to pick it up in game 1.
With Azir and Co, it looks like they might be able to try and look for another player in Odo. This wave will slowly push out, but you're kind of waiting for that second wave to conga line in here. So it's going to be about 20 seconds before DOS can really make anything happen. And they're moving Sertuss at least into a position where he can try and cut off Abbedagge if he comes up as well.
Yeah, limits in that mid lane, just shadowing Abbedagge for now. DOS hanging back, waiting to see if any opportunity presents itself, and Peach will step into the river. So Rift Herald looks to be the next objective to be contested. And for SK, they are able to use this, generate a gold lead, to generate some pressure, either Sertuss or in this bottom lane. You can see already that that should be secured unchallenged here by EXCEL.
The problem is though, Exakick has already burnt his ultimate, so he has to worry now about this push in mid turning into a dive on bot lane. So he's now got to keep up this entire wave regardless of what happens, and Peach can also turn it into taking that bot side quadrant. So yes, you get the Rift Herald, but this will be 2 plates, if not more, immediately answered by Patrik. So Exakick taking that step too far forward, going to come back to punish him here.
Yeah, I do appreciate the fact that he has respected it after losing the ulti. 1 plate secured, second will just about fall. Peach is now in range. Markoon about to move into his own jungle. The dive opportunity cleared out now with the minion. So 2 plates in the bottom lane in favor of Patrik. 2 plates in the top lane in favor of Irrelevant. And that Rift Herald does need to be used effectively in order to generate the gold lead. And we saw it secured in that Fnatic series. Not exactly the best usage. And with Markoon down 25 CS for now, the fact that he has been able to at least pick up that assist. He's not behind in gold, just behind in level for now. And this is a little bit more the expectations we've had. Beautiful prediction on the dredge line. Now, unfortunately for Patrik and Limit, support was waiting in the river. Markoon arrives, flash and cleanse blown for both of the respective bottom lanes. And Peach is now moving in as well. Herald has been dropped. Teleports are available for the top lane for Odo if he needs to join, but he's dealing with Irrelevant for now. Markoon is going forward, and that's already a hook back onto DOS. And just to fly back to Exakick and steps away. Plate and a half secured off that Rift Herald, but a beautiful hook from Limits.
Yeah, so straight up, you will get another plate off this push, as he will start to look to back away, but it just means you're answering for what was already the damage done by Patrik Limit on that bottom side. Abbedagge will need some help if he wants to try and clear out this wave though, as Peach will stick around, but as you say, Limit making some fancy plays there, predicting the flash, just not really enough damage to actually follow up on it.
Didn't have the itemization just yet or the numbers behind him. I also think the fact that Markoon was so quickly able to join the fray immediately pushed the EXCEL bottom lane back. So that gold lead slowly continuing to develop. Big advantage in that top lane, 40 CS, and it's plus, what, 2,000 gold for now. The plates have been traded back and forth, and we're about 1.5 minutes from that next dragon. Markoon has slowed the game down. Game number 1, by this point, I think he'd ganked 12 times and has secured 5 or 6 kills. And paying a little bit more respect to the pace of this one, letting his top laner bully Odoamne on the Cassante.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this is going to then come down to, hey, we want to try and look towards things like, can we try and get bot lane tower down so then we can set Sertuss up in a split push? Because Irrelevant, as you were saying, good control over top side. Sertuss will be very happy to be against Abbedagge, especially if you can create these long lanes, because you can see that's where Sertuss has that chase down potential. If you can land one of these Shuriken flips, The problem that you're seeing at the moment, though, is with not really having as much control as you would like. They're not really getting control, like the push in mid to start to lean down to bot side because they're up against the Tristana. So for SK, it's definitely going to be a case of looking towards, hey, can we get this next Rift Herald and then start to break open this game.
Right now, it is EXCEL with the numbers advantage. Top half of the map. Patrik left alone in the middle lane. Means at least one turret will fall. Plate rather. Second will fall in a moment. No, it's actually stopped. Abbedagge got the flash. Got the Emperor's Divide. Does he have a target? No. SK's bottom lane are able to escape, but they have now lost control and the ability to defend this push. Peach and Limit, they're looking for a dive onto Irrelevant.
They don't really have the damage here, though. Irrelevant is a big old boy. He's got that Gore Drinker. I don't think you win this unless you bring the entire cavalry.
This is sending a message of a no. Dominus has been used. The wave has been cleared out, and Irrelevant has bought himself time. Markoon has started off the dragon, and Sertuss pushing onto the tower. Irrelevant, I don't think he knows there's so many members around. Gets caught with the dredge line. He's already sliced. He's looking for the dice, and he's taken out by Odoamne. But what is the cost here? There is, of course, the dragon secured in the bottom lane. Sertuss, I think he's got himself another couple of plates. And Abbedagge going to be under a little bit of pressure here as the wave is now pushing for yet another tower secured by SK.
I think EXCEL are kind of misunderstanding what they need to be doing right now. They should be trying to slow down the pace of the game and try and play to push back SK. Instead, they're moving Limit up to the top side to try and be more aggressive, to try and fix Odoamne's lane. But that really isn't what you need to do. You need to stop these towers from being taken, stop the map from being opened up, and then you can just wave clear for days and days and days until you hit the late game. Instead now, you've lost bot tower. Your top tower is going to fall with Sertuss having TP'd up to this top end as well. And this is now going to cause issues for EXCEL where that gold lead suddenly starts to become bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, we saw 11 plates secured to the 4 of EXCEL. 1,300 gold lead for Irrelevant in the top lane. Sertuss with the tower in the bottom lane and a lot of alone time. He's got himself a 1,200 gold lead. And I think for that Akali, that is actually so crucial for SK. An advantage for his champion specifically when you consider how hard it will be to get through that front line. And SK, they are now starting to apply some pressure to this top tower. The Rift Herald spawns in a minute. Mid lane is about to reset, and it looks like Sertuss wants to at least shove out top, potentially drop down and contest for that Rift Herald that you talked about, Dagda.
Yeah, the fact that they got control over mid and top means they've got a ton of vision in this top side jungle, and that's what Limit's trying to clear out, but he's got it very shallow, and now you got in a position where SK, they can push out this top wave, and with Markoon and Exakick just moving out of mid lane, you can't defend top turret. You have to be so careful of a dive. Peach is here. Maybe they're looking for a TP with Odo in case things go really awry, but Irrelevant, he's matching any sort of aggressive play there from Odo.
This is a very precarious position. If either EXCEL or SK overstep, there is the ability to punish. SK have converted that farming and gold into bigger items, so it's nearly 2,000-3,000 combat gold difference between the teams. And the Herald is now spawning, so shallow vision for EXCEL. Irrelevant and Odo have got the respective teleports available, but they are trading in the bottom lane. And it does look like Markoon is already inside the pit. He started off the Rift Herald. Peach, does he fancy a shot? He doesn't have the backup, doesn't have the numbers. I think he's going to have to back away and fall out from this potential attempt at a steal.
Yeah, he's just kind of bluffing here. You can see Abbedagge is already reset into base, so they're not looking for a fight, they're not looking for anything, just trying to make sure that SK have to commit members to this before they try and go for a play on top side. So this is where Sertuss now can continue this pressure top end, look to see if he can try and get a nice steal for Peach, try and get this top tower, and then you can use that Rift Herald in mid to get the last towers down, and that's now where SK can actually look to try and play those side lanes.
Of course, for SK, if they win this series, they will go to the season finals event. And I think when you consider the youngness, the inexperiencedness, the youthfulness of the roster, Game 1 blew my mind in terms of their approach. Their ability against Fnatic was great, and they've already generated a gigantic lead. But now they need to show us those brains in action. Use the advantage that Renekton and Akali have generated to pressure these side lanes. Rift Herald's available as well. They've only got themselves the one tower secured, but top will fall very easily. And the mid needs to be unlocked. Of course, that Azir with the Sun Disc can still be a bit of a pain in the butt.
Limit going to start walking up here. Sertuss is going to hide, but with Patrik there, I think Sertuss will know the Limit's probably in the area. It's been very interesting to me, though, to see how, I mean, the youth as you call him, Trevor, is starting to kind of grow. When we look at SK back in winter, when they were as dominant as they were, like looking like one of the top teams in the LEC, it was very much a, hey, that was stopped.
Patrik was interrupted.
No, you don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah.
Under the tower, one hit.
A lot of it was, hey, we're going to try and play around Exakick in this bottom side of the map and try and get him snowballing. And this became the name of the game for SK. Get Exakick fed, let him carry. But as they kind of teetered on, that identity started to shift. They couldn't really find success with that anymore. So they've kind of leaned now more towards, hey, can we get Irrelevant going on something like a Jax? Can we get Sertuss going on something like an Akali and see if we can play side lanes a little bit better? And I think they're one of the few teams that we actually have in the LEC that is more willing to play the side lane game. We're going to have to see now if it's going to work against EXCEL, because they're congregating a lot of people down towards this dragon, and specifically to try and pick off Irrelevant before it starts off.
I mean, I think in terms of playing the side lane, but also just the willingness to lean on different plays in different lanes to carry. We've seen so much growth through the adversity for SK. They are now in a position, they've got a significant lead, staring down a potential dragon fight. Vision is superior here for EXCEL. A couple of wards inside there where Sertuss is standing. And it does look like Sertuss starting off here onto Peach. He's inside the Shroud. DOS has got the quickness available, uses it. Defensive flash from Peach, knocked up into the air. The feathers are available for Exakick if needed. Peach is able to walk away, still alive.
The depth charge from Limit interrupted the second charge of the perfect execution, so Sertuss couldn't finish off Peach. The amount of pressure they have, though, does give SK Dragon. And you can see Sertuss is moving back up to the top side to make sure he can catch that wave. So big win for SK there, even though they don't get the kill.
Very well spotted, Dagda. Because of the fact that SK are committing to that dragon. Got numbers in the middle lane. Sertuss under some threat. He's still got the flash available to him. Dragon is secured and Sertuss is able to back away. So second dragon picked up at 18 minutes. That gold lead remains pretty stable at 3,000. And Abbedagge has got a lot of alone time with the tower. Rift Herald pretty quickly dropped here. And we'll be securing most likely this middle tower. Manual wave pondering in. And Peach is coming from behind. Does need to be a little cautious, doesn't have that ultimate available to him. And I don't think we're going to see any commitment. Limit doesn't have the depth charge either.
No, but still, it's the outer turrets now completely gone in favor of SK. So this is going to give them the opportunity to start playing for these side lanes and making sure that it's all good.
Sertuss, level 12, teleports to the top lane.
There's a lot of members of EXCEL up here, though.
All right, remember, there's vision fantastically demonstrated by the observers. EXCEL committing towards top lane tower. They've kind of been fishing several times. When Irrelevant was in the top lane, we saw multiple attempts at either a dive or looking to punish Irrelevant. I think they did manage to find one kill. Looking to punish Sertuss again. And when you do consider the rest of the map, it is not gigantic advantages being accrued, but I think it is fair to say that SK have been able to pick up more farm. They've been able to take that tower in the middle lane, been able to get Sertuss the plates in the bottom lane. So SK are just taking advantage of the fact that EXCEL committing to these potential dives.
You do have to try and pick up the pace here, but as SK though, you're now in the position where you need to establish yourselves in side lanes. Like, start to threaten, as you can see here, Vision in towards EXCEL's jungle, because otherwise you're kind of looking at the point where, okay, next dragon isn't for another 3.5 minutes. All right, well, that's now going to be another item completed on towards things like Abbedagge and Patrik. And then you're only hitting onto a point where, okay, now EXCEL can kind of come back in a lot of these fights. So for SK, I like where the position that they're in, but I really need to see them kick it up a notch. And I want it to be Sertuss pushing mid, top, Exakick pushing mid, and then leaning that pressure into this top side jungle.
Well, listen, it's 20 minutes on the clock, so that means SK are going to start the Baron and most likely secure it. They've done it every single game in groups. Instead, they're pushing into the jungle, and Markoon forced to flash away. DOS buys some time with the quickness, and Irrelevant completes the teleport. Odoamne is held onto his TP. SK looking for a pick, looking for a kill, and they managed to, they are pushed away, in fact.
And that's the thing, though, again, we're seeing that SK are too quick off the bat. You just needed to wait for that wave to crash in mid, someone to go catch it, and then you're guaranteed the numbers advantage in that jungle fight. But instead, they try to cut corners, EXCEL are able to push them back, and now they don't get that vision that they wanted to establish anywhere. This is basically, you can see it on the map here, like there is just a line straight across the map where all the vision is for both sides. You need to try and get this deeper here if you want to try and play the split push game that SK are looking for.
I mean, for SK, they did just secure that mid-outer turret, and maybe falling prey to their own kind of approach to Baron, trying to surprise EXCEL. It didn't work out, and I think with the fact they've got no teleports for Sertuss or Irrelevant, that gets harder especially when both Odo and Abbedagge, they have theirs available. So DOS stepping into the river. Going to be run down in a moment. Markoon looking for Peach, holding him in place for now. Abbedagge's Emperor's Divide will at least force SK away, and that gets a teleport out of Odo. Small win here for SK as they once again try to force the hand. They're looking for, forced errors on behalf of EXCEL, making them react to these proactive plays. And if you look at the side lanes, they don't have too much to push for at the moment.
I think a lot of this is going to be a case of SK waiting now until they can take advantage of Odo having no TP. You've got a brief window where Sertuss will be up and also having Irrelevance up, and maybe you can start to play at the map then where you can threaten things like Baron as a 4-man unit while Irrelevance on a side lane. It is going to be a little bit tough though. Dragon in a minute's time. You have a lot of good items just coming through, with second items pretty much completed across the board here for SK. So I think EXCEL may forego, honestly, third Dragon and say, hey, we need to establish Vision and Baron instead and see if we can draw SK into us. Because again, front to back for EXCEL is where they want to fight. And if you are walking in blind as SK, that is terrifying against what EXCEL have.
And if EXCEL concede the Baron, that is one of the biggest win conditions for the composition that SK have put together. If Irrelevant, with his 1500 gold lead, still maintaining an advantage in that side lane, is able to push deeper, if Sertuss is able to try to play the map more, that is an area that EXCEL will struggle to kind of respond to on both sides. Sertuss once again under some threat. Teleport is being channeled there from Abbedagge, and Odo, can he lock him down? The rest of SK in the middle lane, do they commit to the push? So teleport used, fishing, and ultimately nothing comes from it.
But this is the thing, EXCEL have overcommitted. They're trying to play for Baron and SK are shoving in mid. So now this is what we're talking about, EXCEL playing for Baron over the Dragon and trying to see if they can catch SK as they transition in here blind.
They get themselves Sertuss's teleport. And if this is just a straight up front to back, how does Sertuss find a target? Abbedagge got himself that Emperor's Divide, which will be huge. The 4 members of SK standing in front of him. Belt has been fired. Baron down to 6,000. Keeper's Verdict gets rid of Peach for now. Patrik tries to rocket jump to safety, and the Emperor's Divide sets the line once again. Sertuss manages to find the kill onto Abbedagge, but Patrik is able to escape for now. Markoon looking to run him down, and Exakick holding off what looks like 3 members of EXCEL. All of a sudden, Irrelevant is knocked back, and Patrik versus Markoon and Sertuss. Keep your eyes on Exakick on the left as he's trying to find Limit, trying to find Odo, but they just don't have the speed for now. 1 kill for 2 in favor of SK. They managed to find the angle and find the kills they needed.
They might find Baron off the back as well. They're now immediately moving over towards that. DOS the only one down, so SK, they might have actually turned the Baron into a big favor for them.
I mean, the fact that they were able to find Abbedagge so quickly. Sertuss diving onto the backline, Patrik caught out as well. Baron secured, SK win the fight. And the Dragon is available. Do they have enough time to get there? I don't know. It does look like it's only the tanky members, so SK may even be able to pick up the Dragon.
Especially with the Hextech Rift, they're going to be able to get out of these with the portals and immediately get there. So SK, this is where they're finally getting control in this game. It was a big mistake from EXCEL. They try to take the fight, they don't manage to disengage correctly, and now SK are the ones in control.
You take a look in that replay, how exactly both Abbedagge and Patrik were jumped on. I think Irrelevant sat on top of like 4 members, full dominance, got that Q down, and SK now have got a gigantic advantage. 3rd Dragon picked up, Baron secured, teleport available for Irrelevant. And it does look like Sertuss pushing mid, the rest of SK coming to join Irrelevant in the bottom lane. They could consider a dive. It's something they've done many times already. Quickness is available for DOS. So don't hold your breath just yet, Dagda. SK, do they play it slow? Do they play it fast?
I think they're going to try and look for this. You can see Abbedagge in the top side. So Sertuss in mid. SK just going to try and keep up this pressure so they can keep going for these tier 2s. You'll get the next wave coming into bot side. You should be able to take that one. And now SK is putting threats onto the mid lane inhibitor.
For Sertuss, the fact that he can get to the potential inhibitor could even drop down to the bottom lane quicker than Abba. No teleport for him. He hasn't decided. Does he back? Does he stick to the tower? Is sticking for now. And Irrelevant with that teleport available, he's starting to back. Will shop and looks to defend the top lane. Tower secured for SK. The 5th of the game unlocked for them. And they are making this composition work. Irrelevant, does he fancy himself a fight?
He's just hiding.
Buying time, look at the rest of the squad. Emperor's Divide used fairly early. Slice over. Markoon's nearby. Blast Cone will at least get Abba over the wall. The Hex Tech gates are used, but now it's all of a sudden irrelevant to Markoon, facing down Peach and Abbedagge. No one else from EXCEL is around. Abbedagge's got no ultimate available to him, no flash available to him. Doss is over the wall as well. The Blast Cone buys another little bit of time, but Abba is killed by SK. The tension is now turning onto Odoamne, who is run down by the Bash duos of Sertuss and Irrelevant, and Limit is the next target. They managed to punish the hiding, the deception from Irrelevant, and the fact that they had the Hex Tech gates unlocks another gigantic advantage.
And the fact that Patrik was bot lane. SK were like, I mean, yeah, we can definitely take this. You haven't got half your damage here, especially if they kill Abbedagge. And now SK, they're still got a little bit of this Baron buff left, and they should be able to move in towards the towers.
Pushing in both top and middle lane. It's 20 seconds for Odo. 13 seconds for Abbedagge. Patrik already forced to use that rocket jump to safety. Peach trying to buy time with the ulti, but he's being run down by multiple members of SK using that gate to get out of range. The shuriken's finally dropping him. Limit is up. Abbedagge is now coming forward. Inhibitor will fall, and SK have taken some poke damage. And Irrelevant is not exactly the most important target. Sand Soldier's fired forward. Dredgeline catches onto Doss. No flash for him, no ulti either. Sertuss re-engages. He's looking for the kill to Limit and will find it, but it is at the cost of Exakick's life. Now Sertuss looking for another one to Patrik. Dashes forward. Perfect execution is unavailable. Goes gold and he gets the double. He pulls it off perfectly, executing EXCEL inside their base. It's now Odoamne versus 4. Another inhibitor will fall, and Odo is so low. He needs to heal up. He cannot stand toe-to-toe with everybody on SK's side. SK will even out the series, make a statement, the composition, and they now turn their attention to the Nexus. Peach is back up, it'll take just a couple seconds, and with that verdict, we are going to game number 3.
EXCEL tried to play for that Baron, and it ends up coming back to bite them. I like the idea. It's like, look, we can't really fight into the amount of vision SK have set up, but they just need to peel that back that bit quicker, find a bit of a better disengage. But unfortunately, SK, they just jumped all over them, and right at the end, I mean, Sertuss kind of pop it off a little bit there. You can see him on the stage. Very happy with the way that Akali game went.
Very confident with his ability on one of his most played champions. And I think importantly for me, when SK play a little bit slower, when they do play a little bit more for the cross maps or for the objectives, they look fantastic. And that's actually what we're anticipating from this entire series, was kind of a front-to-back ARAM style EXCEL, and then the brainier, smarter version of SK.
Yeah, I definitely think the fact that SK managed to catch the Baron fight was the decisive matter, because you're kind of getting to a stage where, all right, well, you know, we still have all the outer towers. Oh, well, we've got the outer towers down, but the tier 2s are all there. It's still not going to be great. We still can't really put a huge amount of pressure down. You're not really winning mid-push for SK. So there was definitely some issues that they're going to have to overcome. But the fact they just managed to completely crack open the game then at that Baron fight just made such a big difference.
There is so much confidence oozing from SK in terms of how they're playing the game, the compositions that they are running, the surprises they're throwing at pretty much everybody we've seen this weekend. And now it comes down to this third and final game. EXCEL will have side selection, and we need to see what is the response, what is the answer. I think early games, I kind of feel like I prefer how SK have approached the first sort of 10 minutes of both games. Admittedly, game 1 very chaotic, but I feel like it was them on the proactive, you know, front foot.
I think I'd like to see EXCEL go back to just a really strong mid jungle. The fact that we're looking at, like, it was Viego and Twisted Fate, and we had the Ahri and the Lee Sin, these kind of things that you can just play hyper aggressive in. And I think banning the Poppy is the first road to that. If you can actually get rid of this, it means that it's very difficult then for you to actually respond to something that is that hyper aggression in the mid lane. And then EXCEL can go back to what worked for them, which is get stupid strong in the early game and then just go for fight after fight after fight.
And the thing that I'm so excited, if that happens, what else have SK cooked up for us? We're going to find out in a moment. Before we do, let's head to Ender and Finn at the Telestrator.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're going to be here talking about the early game movement, specifically SK setting up around the Herald. I know you've been laser focused on how they're going for these objectives, but in this situation, it's not a huge win for them. So talk me through that.
Yeah, so this play caught my eye. It's basically we're 650 into the game here, and Rakan and Xayah are basing together. And here, Rakan is opening up topside. You're going to see he hesitates a little bit, but he's going to go topside here, which is, in my opinion, not optimal, because if you go topside at 7 minutes, that means if you want to be there for the Herald, you have to wait around there for 50 seconds. And that kind of gives the enemy a lot of time to make a crossman play into your Xayah. You're going to see Xayah's wave bounce here, and she's going to be put in a very awkward position where she can't really fight or farm. And meanwhile, Rakan is just staying here, not really accomplishing much with his move. So if I'm Exakick here, I'm gonna be very angry in the review, and I'm gonna tell my Rakan, hey, buddy, I need you here.
Yeah, because his wave is like now slow pushing out. He didn't actually get a freeze going.
If Xayah has Rakan here, she can push out this wave and then move to Herald together, while the Tristana here catches under the tower. But now she's gonna get caught out, lose her ult, and we're gonna give over 2 plates for Tristana, while SK was in a winning position.
And throughout all of that, if you take a look at the jungle, like Vision got placed down by a limit, so they're completely setting up for a potential dive here for full control. They know they can keep Xayah pushed off.
I just think SK gave over a little bit too much to Patrik here. Gave him a win condition maybe they could play for, and I think they could have done better for next game if they can review this point.
Yeah, and I mean, objective control has been very good for them. They're Barons, they ended up getting a lot of Dragons later on. But let's go ahead and get on over to the desk to keep talking about this game, because
Join me.
After this point, they just took it over.
They did indeed, but first I want to see the draft and how they set themselves up for these win conditions, because Finn, we had a lot to say about the draft that SK chose and the choices of EXCEL as well. The Cassante, we're not such a big fan of it, but I also think, I know that Sertuss loves to play his Akali into Azir. It's been seen last time against Fnatic. I don't think it was an ideal Akali.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Akali pick is fine. I think Sertuss usually, when there's a blind pick Akali, blind pick Azir, he likes to go for that Akali. He's been doing this now for 1, 2, 3 years in the LEC. My main issue with the draft for EXCEL here was that SK are showing clearly that they want to pick the Renekton on 4. They are banning Gnar and Kennen for the Renekton blind pick. It's very telegraphed, I think. So instead of banning Gwen, which I think is pretty needless, they should just ban a Renekton and then look for a Cassante Gwen trade, because I think it's more favorable. Or it's going to end up in a matchup where Cassante against Sion. Either way, it's going to be like a kind of dead lane top, which is way better than because if you play Cassante into Renekton, you're just bleeding gold every wave, and it's just kind of hard to play, I think.
It was weird because like I felt like the SK bans telegraphed they wanted to go for top on 4.
Yeah.
But the EXCEL bans were like, oh, Gwen, that's a 5 pick, you know, like you're countering out probably a tank on the top side. So they sort of had the wrong read, I want to say, in that situation. That ended up costing them a bit. I also am a little bit surprised that they self-banned the Xayah after it was so effective in game 1, and I'm just a full-on believer in that pick. So assuming blue side here, I would like to see them go back to a game 1 draft style. Yeah,
the casters were saying maybe a stronger mid jungle. We'll talk about this one a bit later, but it feels like this series is mostly, for SK at least, about Barons and Baron setup. And I feel like when you have Poppy, you're going to have the advantage.
Yeah, I mean, if you can eliminate the enemy front line, or especially the enemy jungler, this Baron play ends up being just so huge for the team when SK are able to sort of just walk in, remove the Sejuani from the field. And I also think you see a little bit of the power of the Akali in these team fights, because I think Akali almost has to be on like ultimate watch duty and finding like that second engage time. You need that initial counter util to come out, right? Sejuani is gone. Goss and Irrelevant go in here first to burn a lot of the spells, like Azir ult is down, and after that point, once the Azir ult goes, Sertuss can fully dive into the backline and just mop up.
Yeah, I just wonder who can peel the Akali in these fights. They have a Cassante top, which could in theory deal with a flanker like Akali, but he's so far behind and Akali is so strong. If he would try to flank the mark Akali, he's just going to get killed himself.
Yeah, and when you have so many other champions on SK's comp that want to dive in, like first, you're dealing with Irrelevant, you're dealing with the Rakan, you need to use things to keep them off you.
I mean, it's a tough situation if you can get collapsed on like this from multiple angles. I just don't see the EXCEL comp have too many tools to deal with it, unless they get a really good Empress Divide or something. They will just get like run over in these fights like you see here.
So, resetting into the third game, we're going to have the same side selection as we had in game 1, which means EXCEL is going to go back on the blue side. The casters were saying that for this game, they want to see EXCEL go back to a stronger mid-jungle. Do you agree on this? Do we want to see the same kind of priority here with the Xayah first and then following up with the Jayce, for instance?
I think definitely picking the Xayah is a no-brainer if you're EXCEL. This champion can get flexed in 2 roles. I do think it's going to go bot for EXCEL. He's having strong opinions about bot there as well.
Give me Akali, guys. Give me Akali. It's fine.
But yeah, I think the Xayah for sure has to come through. I think we're going to see a very similar draft as the first game, with a little bit of change from SK in the 4-5 department. But in general, I think we're going to see a similar 1-3.
Yeah, I think EXCEL, they were toying with like the blue side bans, like that third one. You know, the first game it was Xayah, then they left it through. The second game it's Xayah. Maybe there's a world where they remove something like the Tristana and then look to like like call out a Kai'Sa ban on the other side or take it for themselves.
Yeah, you could also try to give them Xayah and draft like a long-range comp poke into it.
Yeah,
Like a Jace, Sejuani or something. You could always look to pick this.
Sounds like game one a little bit. I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. But I mean, when you look at the bans, they've mostly been the same. Honestly, on red side, would you say it's difficult right now, being put in this red side position when it comes to the big priorities that you want to have on blue?
I just think SK is very comfortable with these bans.
Okay.
I think they know exactly what's going to happen. I think they know what kind of trades they can make with these bans. They run all the simulations. They just know, like, if they pick this, we pick this. If they pick this, we pick this. And they just have to do a little bit of nitpicking 4 or 5, and they just see the draft very clearly.
Yeah, I think their soul laners especially are happy to have like a counter pick going at the end. That
Right.
Akali when there's an Azir angle, Sertuss is always taking it.
We'll see the approach both teams take going into this game 3. Will SK be the 4th team to lock in season finals with a win here, or is EXCEL moving into the summer playoffs? We'll be right back for game 3.
Irrelevant, I don't think he knows there's so many members around. Gets caught with the dredge line. He's already sliced, he's looking for the dice, and he's taken out.
Sertuss out, Sertuss out, Sertuss out. Flash. Looks a little bit hard. No, win.
No flash for him, no ulti either. Sertuss re-engages. He's looking for the kill to limit and will find it, but it is at the cost of Exakick's life. Now Sertuss looking for another one to Patrik. Dashes forward. Perfect execution is unavailable. Goes golden, he gets the double.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. Best of 1, guys. Let's go.
Stay focused, guys.